Now, of all the missions that I sent to Duna, the Kethane satellite is unique, right? Because we are actually going to put it in orbit around Ike. So let's get it to its encounter, its entry into the sphere of influence of Duna, and see how I do that. Now, compared to the others, I parked this a little bit further out. And again, I'm going to try and make a maneuver here and see where... Now, this is a little bit coming in a little bit high. Now, I want to pull this up because I want to see how much delta V I'm using. Okay. That seems like it pushes the orbit closer to what we want. Okay. Then I'm going to... Aha! That's all we need to do. Ike periapsis 716, 600, 657. Now, Ike really likes to capture things. I mean, at least, well, I should say throw things off, not actually capture. Now, the important thing is that this probe needs to be under 250,000 meters in order to scan the surface with the Kethane probe. So, that should do very nicely. 166. I think that'll be fine. Okay, so again, not much. As long as you do it far out, away from the planet, it's pretty good. But we're going to have to burn into orbit around Ike, because otherwise he'll fling us off. So let's be careful about this, not time warping too much. Actually, let me turn this towards the maneuver node first. Okay, that's good enough for me. Alright, now again, not time warping too much. Looks like we're coming in the opposite direction of Ike's natural motion. That's a little bit unfortunate, but not a huge problem. Okay, at the periapsis, burn to circularize. Whoa, that's a bit weird. Okay, that's fine. Now, important if you're going to send a probe to a planet that's going to scan the surface, that you want the inclination to be high so it can scan the whole thing. So let's see. Okay, first get it in range. That's good. And then perhaps... No, I'll need to adjust its inclination once we get into orbit, because then I'll use its ascending and descending node. So I'm not going to adjust that here. Okay, looks pretty good already. So lots of burning to do. Fortunately, we have quite a lot of fuel. Where is... oh, there it is. Right on the retrograde, as one would expect. Tad time warp. Okay, let's get the full view of this. Where is... there's Duna. And there's Ike. You can't quite see it because we're in its shadow, but Duna and Ike. Okay. About a 3-minute burn. Okay, a more eccentric orbit than I wanted, but still well within the limits of the detector. Next, I want to see, we're going this way around. Increase the inclination. And here again I have to make sure, because it expands it, as you can see, I have to also pull it back in. That's a better view of Ike. Not the most hospitable place to actually make a landing though, if we ever wanted to land a Kethane miner on it. Okay, well I think without further ado we should start detecting. The cute little detection sound, and of course might as well put the grid overlay on to see what's going on. Oop, found some. So Ike is not without its Kethane. Definitely not without Kethane. So, let me just show you. You can see it's making this sort of polar pattern here, similar to longitude lines around the planet. So it will cover the whole planet. Otherwise, it would miss the pole if it wasn't in such a inclined orbit. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with the complete scanning of this. So the next thing to do is turn to the return vehicles, the all-critical return vehicles, without which the mission is really a failure. Now really, the two return vehicles are coming in pretty close to each other, and it's difficult for me to tell which one is actually going to arrive first. Okay, it doesn't look like it's this one. Let me just double check. Okay, so this is going to be in 13 days. So I'm going to switch to the other one and see how long it'll take. It's basically the same, so I'm going to have to do it all pretty quickly. So I'm going to follow this one first. So bring this up and let's get it into the sphere of influence of Duna. It looks like I picked the right one. Okay. Zooming in. Periapsis already of 300. Now, from the experience with the rover, I know I can dip below 18 kilometers. So that's what I'm going to do. Now you see, you want to pull the blue thing in the direction towards the planet. That's the way you do this part. And the periapsis should go lower. At some point you gotta be colliding with the planet, and then you don't pull it in this direction anymore. 13. 12. I'm gonna go with 12. But I need to get into orbit though. Maybe a little bit higher. I don't have the luxury of being able to land directly as I did with the rover. Okay, 13.6 kilometers. Okay, I'll take that. 9.2 meters per second, no problem. Now, the whole craft has to get into orbit, and then we'll release the lander, and the lander will have to make its own way down. Okay. Okay, we don't need to rush with getting into orbit, so I'm actually going to go prograde, and that's because the one thing I want to avoid is crashing into the planet. At least we've got daylight this time. For some reason it drew from these tanks but not this one. I'm gonna correct that just to avoid any sort of imbalance. There we go. Okay, let's see what's happening to our orbit. Not really much. not right now. Come on there. Getting close to periapsis, so again, not really in a hurry to get into orbit. I could start burning over here and get into an even better orbit, really. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn retrograde. We're not having much atmospheric effects anymore, so I'm going to start burning. Finally, sheesh. Okay, that's dropping my periapsis. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a maneuver node to get the correct orbit that I want. Just going to bring it down. And then use radials to make it neater. Okay, I think I'll take that. I hate the inclination though. Perhaps this is the right place to make an inclination change as well? Looks about right. So we're making a pretty luxurious inclination change, but we've got massive amounts of fuel in this stage, so it should be fine. The actual lander's fuel is still intact. And actually, I'm going to take this opportunity to activate the Kethane detectors. There's no particular reason why not to. We're in orbit, and we're below 250,000 kilometers. The problem is the rover is way up here. Huh. It's an unpleasant consideration how far I might have to bring the rover in order to get it to wherever I'm mining Kethane. But I'm not going to keep it in such an inclined orbit, I don't think. I guess this will be our opportunity to test the robustness of the rover, getting it from where it is to where it needs to be. Okay, I'm actually reconsidering the plane change. I think I want to keep some inclination just in case. So I'm going to do that and this. That'll be fine. I just need it, I really need to figure out where the Kethane is before deciding anything else. And that means that the higher inclination might be helpful. What an ominous way to burn, really. Burning right at the planet. But no, contrary to what some people might think, burning right at the planet will not actually make you crash into the planet. As you can see, we are doing nothing of the kind. In fact, burning right at the planet is actually putting us into an even better orbit. Now eventually this apoapsis is going to become a periapsis, and then we'll be crashing into the planet once that dips into the surface. But right now, burning right at the planet is not causing us to be on a crash-worthy trajectory. Okay, So I'm going to cut out the. I'm gonna stop the recording because all I'm doing now is Kethane scanning until I find something, hopefully closer to the rover. So I'll come back when I've got a lot of this planet scanned. Oh wait. On second thought, I have another return vehicle entering. Right? It's right here. Look at that. So yeah, actually, let us immediately turn to the other return vehicle to make sure it does not wander away from Duna. Okay, so here we are with the final return vehicle, and it's a good thing I didn't start actively trying to scan Duna, because as you can see, this return vehicle is already within Duna's sphere of influence and needs to be managed. So I'm going to add a maneuver here. It's actually pretty close, so this little trick with... oh, it's not going to take too much. I was worried that because I was too close it might take more. Now obviously it turned out that even 13 kilometers wasn't enough. So I'm going to dip this all the way to 8.5 kilometers and see if that's any better. Okay, burn in 17 minutes. So you're getting plenty of information on how deeply to do an aerobrake in the Duna atmosphere. 6,400 meters. Well, as long as I don't crash into any mountains, that shouldn't be a problem. Maybe I should raise it a little bit. Could just go to the opposite side. Right about there. There we go, 8. Alright. Careful about how we time warp. I have in a previous save time warped right past Duna, even though I was supposed to be aerobraking in its atmosphere. Now this is a seriously eccentric orbit. Wow. You know what? I'm just gonna allow it. Heck, that just gives the Kerbonauts that are going to arrive in the next wave more choices about where they're going to land. So they'll have the opportunity to land near the rover. They'll have an opportunity to land wherever the first return vehicle ends up, and they'll have an opportunity to land wherever the second return vehicle ends up. Now, is this going to force me into like the snow? I don't know if the periapsis is so low that I'm going to end up smashing into the surface anyway, because the surface might be so high. I mean, this is Mars analog, and Mars has some seriously high stuff. So, oh right, I should go with the prograde, not the retrograde, because again, the issue is avoiding a crash into the surface, and orbiting is sort of something I can hold off on. Okay. This should definitely be taken from this view. Yep. Okay, glad that time warp ceases within the atmosphere. Sort of looks more like clouds than snow, doesn't it? I have the impression that it snows a lot. I don't know. Doesn't quite have this sort of fluffy texture. Sharper. I was thinking of the word sharper. This one's coming in faster. I think that's because it wasn't a Hohmann transfer. It's actually coming into Duna much faster than the others. Ooh, we are getting very close to the surface. Does not seem to be a problem just yet, but you know, notice I'm angled up just in case. Things are happening fast now. We're going to get in orbit, but will it be too quickly? I'm thinking I'm too far in. Yep, my periapsis is dropping. This is not good. Oh yeah, I've just lost. I have actually lost. Uh-oh. This is not good. Okay, try and go up, try and go up. So this is a pretty tight aerobrake. I mean, you're talking about 9 kilometers is way too, 8 kilometers is way too deep, 13 kilometers is way too shallow. So, I mean, there's definitely a Goldilocks thing between those two, which I would have been able to get the right kind of orbit in, but, well, why don't I turn on the detectors? Heck, we're like right here, right? If I can detect Kethane, I might as well just set it down. But there's no Kethane. There's no Kethane here. Let's hope we hit some Kethane. Would have been better to get this thing in orbit though, because this has resources like this. Also has oxygen in here, right? There's 75 days worth of oxygen for Kerbals right there, and there's also these little radial tanks. So putting it in orbit would have been helpful, because then something could dock on it and retrieve the spare fuel, which is depleting as we speak, but also retrieve the oxygen. Now let me let me do the little transfer I did for the other one. We still got a lot of fuel, so we might be able to save ourselves after all. But you'll notice this thing barely has a thrust to weight ratio that can beat out Mars. I mean, not Mars, Duna's gravity. It definitely doesn't have a thrust to weight ratio to beat out Kerbin's gravity. Still no Kethane. We are not setting down unless we detect Kethane. Or the stage runs out of fuel. Well, maybe I should see if I can get into orbit after all. But it's sort of a shame we're so close to the surface. We could just dump the Mars stage and just get on with it. But there's no real point to that. It's not like we're saving fuel, because we're going to be mining for fuel anyway. I need to tilt further up because we're losing our... we weren't going up anymore. We're losing our vertical speed. That's what I was looking for. Okay. Oh, is that a good sound? No, it's not. Kethane detectors. Well, I think I feel safe enough to do physical time warp. Ooh, it's a little bit wiggly though. I think we should be high enough that I can tilt forward, right? But again, thrust weight ratio is the problem here. Okay, so it looks like we've got a worthy apoapsis here. So I'm just going to now coast to apoapsis and burn there to circularize. But I'm still looking for Kethane along the way. So this is good though. It looks like we are carrying excellent amount of fuel. In fact, I think we're carrying enough fuel such that if we hadn't gotten the Hohmann transfer and we had to transfer to Duna in some weird time or something like that, we would have still gotten here. So that means that if we need to send an emergency mission using this sort of configuration, we'll be able to do that. So that's the situation. Okay, really need to start burning here. Okay, I think that's a stable orbit. I think 55 is enough to get us out of the atmosphere. So, I'm going to continue scanning for Kethane. I've got 2 active now. And I think this episode has probably gone on for too long anyway, if it's even just 1 episode. So the landing of the return vehicles will have to be separate after I've scanned for Kethane and all that. So, yeah, so catch that in the separate episode, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, found it interesting or informative, please do press like. And if you want to continue following my little Kerbal adventures, please subscribe, and see you around.